And what he did is he turned over his top engineers to me, and we started working on it, and I became the project manager, and I took over the design and supervision of the engineering, and we released our first meter in 1997, and had a little TA knob in the center. It was teal color. Anybody here have one of those? My goodness, because a lot of the old-timers really prefer those even to this day, and we're trying to phase them out because they're cheaper, but they're difficult to make and they're problematic. You've seen those?
Mark 6?
No, not Mark 6. No, it was the AutoSense meter, and it's blue. It used to be.
That you originally would be got from you.
Yeah,
yes,
the original.
Yeah.
We call it the original, the classic clarity meter.
Oh yes.
So again, anybody else have one of those? So we decided to build those instead of any kind of an auto reset job because they're really very traditional. And I never had trouble keeping the needle on the dial. And I figured anybody who wants to learn this stuff can go ahead and learn how to do it, and all this newfangled stuff and the digital stuff, and then you see the needle moving, you don't know what made it move. So we built this, and it came out in 1997. And it's still preferred by purists. And there are a number of people, that's the only thing they'll work with. Bob Ducharme, Levin, okay? But I started conducting workshops to train people to do simple auditing. And I can't use the word auditing. In fact, this is about the only place I can use my own vocabulary for this. I have to translate everything when I'm talking to a bunch of other people. But I can use those words here. So I was running workshops to teach people to audit. And I realized that about the hardest single thing that they need to learn to do is to keep the needle on the dial while they're looking at the client or piecing. Okay? And after a few days, you figure people are going to fumble around with this for a couple of days, but after an 8-day workshop, I'd be walking back and forth, looking over people's shoulders, and some people would have the client nicely in session, and then he'll be off the dial. Okay, flunk, you're auditing without a meter. Okay? And other people would be keeping the needle on the dial, but this was their TR, you know? This is like that. The person's sitting there out of session. And I don't know how long it took me to get beyond that, but some people are not beyond it after 8 days. And that's too much time, especially when you can deal with it with technology. It's a little analogous if you play guitar, when you first start, when you tune the guitar, you stop playing, put it between your legs, you hit the note on the piano, you tune the string, you do the next note, you tune each other, the next note. It takes 20 minutes, you know, for a beginner. A professional in the middle of a song, you'll be playing a gig, and you'll see him reach down and turn, you see. How many years does it take before he can do that?
A few.
You know, years, 5 years, at least. So why make that a requirement for a person using a meter? So I decided to go ahead and do the auto reset meter. We also solved some other problems. One of the things is you see these digital numbers. I'm kind of more analog oriented myself. I don't really like numbers that much. So you get this readout, all of a sudden the readout changes for your TA. Well, that's nice. What was it before? How big a blowdown did you get? Was it a blowdown or did it rise? Because I'm not focusing on the meter, I'm focusing on the client. I'm running the meter out of my peripheral vision, suddenly there's a change. Well, we came up with this idea of having a previous range window. So when you see a new number on the range window, you have another window that shows you where it came from.
Yeah.
Nice. So we used that for a while, and that was released in 2004. And then we designed the virtual clarity meter initially to handle the cost problem. That was released actually in January of this year, early January. Some people pre-bought them at the last conference in Pasadena. Another problem that solved, quote, problem, was considerations about the C of S. They objected to the original clarity meter, because they felt that it was using their technology, which is BS, but I went back and forth with their attorneys and finally figured out a way to intimidate them. So they got off my back, but it was still an issue. It was a potential issue. Less likely with the auto reset meter, because they don't have that. They're fundamentalists. I mean, Hubbard didn't design it, and they can't do it. So they're basically using technology out of the 50s and 60s in their meters, which is fine with me, as long as they're not trying to stop us. The virtual meter, they can't touch that. They don't have it, they don't have anything like it, and there's no claim that they can make whatsoever, which is nice. So that was a certain motivation. So, eventually, it was a kind of a daydream, the idea of doing this, doing sessions over the internet was a pipe dream, but, you know, we had it in mind. But we discovered that there is indeed an interest in doing this. I've been doing sessions over the telephone for years, very much like Robert Ducharme, using myself as a surrogate. I think, how many people here do that? I've seen a few people. John does it, and I have done it, and Robert Ducharme did it. And we'll talk about that in a second, but then I started using Skype, because the sound is better. For most people, in most situations, it's becoming more and more stable, better than a telephone. And I started working when I realized that, you know, it's actually feasible to do this with the virtual meter. What has to happen? Because there are problems with it, but I've been working with our own engineers, who are angels. Believe me, these people were sent to me. I could never go out and buy people like this on the open market, because it would cost hundreds of thousands of dollars to tempt them away from their jobs and put them on the project. The downside is it took years to get to where we are. And David St. Lawrence was very interested in this, because immediately when he got the virtual meter, he started using it over the internet. Who here knows David St. Lawrence in Virginia? Right, a few people. Very sweet guy. He's been posting his breakthroughs on the internet, and he shared a lot of information. And the final breakthrough was made in a conference call between myself, David, and a Turkish engineer that I know, who was interested in being supportive. And the three of us got together and we discovered this protocol. And we'll talk about that in a minute. So we decided to build the virtual clarity meter because the Hilton meters and the Ford meters. Has anybody seen a Hilton meter? I think they call it a C meter. Yeah. And Nick Ford, I think, has a version, and I don't know what the difference is, but I know that Nick is a designer. And a very sweet guy. I love him. But the meters are very hard to install, and we thought we could improve the performance significantly. Again, if I realized how hard it was going to be, I would have flown to England and sat on his doorstep until I could work something out with him. You know, at that time, the idea of flying to another country to have a meter developed was, to me, it was just inconceivable. You know, I'm here. There's engineers here. And now I realize that travel is an important part of this stuff. I've had to travel to Florida just to get stuff done. You know, I have a specification, and I want the guys to do this, to fix this thing, please. And they sent me a new build, and I try it out, and I'm asking, why do you even send this to me? I can't say this to them, but I'm thinking, why did they send this to me? Don't they know what I want? And I explain it again, and we go back and forth, and each time they send a build, it's a week, right, in the mail. And I tried, finally I flew out there once, and I had two engineers sitting in the backyard, and I took the meter and I showed, this is what I want to do with it, you know, and I turn it on, and then both of them say together, "Oh, that's how you use it." It took me about 6 minutes. I was ready to get back on the plane and fly back to San Francisco. So, but I didn't realize that when I started. So, we did all ourselves. And we also had this idea that we could use some of the algorithms, the processing concepts that we used in the auto reset meter, we could use that in this one. And I think we did. How much of it we did, I am not sure. But they tell us that we did. It saved us some time, but it took so long that I'm not even sure about that. And there were huge problems with the needle response, seeing a smooth needle, having a smooth movement. When we gave our specifications to the designer, we told him that the first thing we want you to perfect is the needle movement. We want you to send us a program that just shows us that the needle movement is smooth and workable. And then you can work on the rest of the stuff. And he said, yeah, I'll do that, sure. And calls it, by the way, I'm still working on the needle movement, but we've got the recording part almost done. We've got this part almost done. We may as well just go do it all together. It's going to cost you another $5,000. Okay, so finally we have the whole thing, and the needle's not working. Yeah. So that was my experience as a project manager. We stuck with it, and I'm very persistent. I don't have to use the word stutter. But it implies fear of change, but we did stick with it, and it paid off. The original design specifications that we gave the engineers were very high sensitivity. I like a very high sensitivity because a lot of the people that I work with, including my wife, are empaths or psychics. And these people can be in relatively good shape, but there's always shit coming in and they're in resistance to it. And they typically sit down with a TA of 5.5, and of course in the church with these random high TA cases, because the meter didn't work over 4, the typical Hubbard meters didn't work over 4.5. See, so they brand them a difficult case. It's nice to be able to crank that thing up with one knob without going through stages 64, 32, 64, 120. You just turn the knob up, and if they're that focused, you can use it sometimes with volts, you get this, or some guys trying to find beyond somewhere, and you just crank it up. So when you have a stuck needle, you crank up enough sensitivity, and the needle's not stuck anymore, and you can steer them to it, and immediately you have to turn down the sensitivity. But I like this. I got used to this. The Alphametrics had that kind of sensitivity, and I did some research with that was just fascinating. With entities, with psychics, and channels, and stuff like that. And I couldn't go back to something that didn't have that sensitivity. So it had high sensitivity, easy to install, which we worked and on. Now we can install it in one step. You just push the thing in and push the CD in. The screen comes up, and you say next. Installs everything, the driver. There's a lot of stuff there. It's a rather complex program. There are a lot of little things that are going on, and it uses game technology. What they use for video gaming and stuff.